Shh. It's that time, y'all. Time for Big Boys Boxing.
If you think I'm a pussy, I'm a punk, you tell me right now. Because listen, I am the baddest nigga. Fuck me.
So that'll give a bit of energy.
Yeah.
It's good night. It is all over in the 11th round.
Kia ora team, and welcome back to Big Boys Boxing for today's prediction videos for two heavyweight fights we have over the weekend. And I'm so relieved we finally have a couple of competitive heavyweight fights to talk about. It's been a while, so let's get into this. So the two fights are Derek Chizora v Pulev, a rematch, and the freshly announced Fabio Wardley v Kingsley Ibe. Stay tuned for some opinion on the second one. It's very interesting. But the first one, Derek Chizora v Pulev, like I say, is a rematch. The first time around, Pulev got a split decision win. Derek Chizora thought he was ripped off. It was an interesting fight. So into the fighters. Firstly, Derek Chizora. He's 32-12. Yes, he's got a lot of losses, but he's fought a lot of top level guys. He's 38 years old. He's 6'1.5" and has a 74-inch reach. And Pulev is 29-2. His only two losses were in world championship fights against Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua. He is 41 years old. He's 6'4.5" and he has a 79.5-inch reach. Now, Derek Chizora is coming off 3 losses in a row, 2 to Joseph Parker and 1 to Alexander Usyk. His last win was a knockout over David Price in 2019, and the fight before that was the spectacular knockout of Artur Spilka. But his 3 losses have been to pretty decent level competition, as we're used to seeing from Derek Chizora. He puts all his effort in, he does try his hardest, but quite often comes up short at world level. This is a kind of crossroads fight for both Derek Chizora and Pulev. They're both getting pretty long on the tooth, and it was competitive last time they fought, so it will be interesting. Pulev is coming off a win, a 10-round decision over Jerry Forrest, and he'd been playing around with Triller's triad combat as well. But the fight before that, he was in the title fight against Anthony Joshua. He got stopped in the 9th round. Prior to that, he fought Rydell Booker. That one was a unanimous decision. And before that, he stopped Bogdan Dinu, but everyone stops Bogdan Dinu. And prior to that was a good fight against Hughie Fury, unanimous decision over 12 rounds. And before that was Kevin Johnson. Basically, the last person he stopped besides Dinu, who everyone stops, was Samuel Peter, and that was a retirement in the 3rd round. So it's been quite a while since he's got a knockout at a decent level. But besides that Anthony Joshua loss, he has been winning. So how this fight I think is going to go is going to be maybe some of the old Pulev. We're going to see him work a lot behind the jab, try and pick the odd right hand, catch Chizora as he's coming in. Now, Chizora has had a tough time of late. He's been taking a lot of punishment, and it's a question, how shot-worn is he? Is he slower? Is he not going to be able to see the punches coming as much? I'm not so sure. I think Derek Chizora is going to have his moments, like we saw in the last fight. There will be occasions where he gets to Pulev, but Pulev should grab him when he gets inside, clinch him up, get some space and start again. I think it's going to be competitive, and I think Pulev is going to get this one on points. It is a 12-round fight, so there's plenty of time for Chizora to try and wear down the older man. Being 41 years old, Pulev does look to be slowing down. In his last fight against Jerry Forrest, Forrest did have his moments, but he did wear down Forrest, and it looked like he might stop him late, but Jerry managed to hang in there and make it to the end of the fight. So I think Pulev is going to win this one by a unanimous decision, not split this time. I could be wrong though, it is competitive, and we've seen Pulev gets knocked down several times by Anthony Joshua. But to be fair, I thought he fought with a lot of bravado in that fight, pretty much standing toe-to-toe with Joshua. I don't see him doing that against Derek Schizorra. So now into this one. Fabio Wardley v Kingsley Ibe. Now I'd seen Fabio Wardley's name on this card for a few days, and he'd been arranged to fight the almighty unbeaten TBA for quite some time. It is now Thursday here in New Zealand, and I thought, well, it's getting pretty late notice. It's not going to be much of an opponent. But Kingsley Ibe has been a late notice opponent before. He kind of burst onto the scene when the first COVID lockdowns were happening. He was fighting in the top ranked bubble, fighting short notice. Nobody ever heard of him, but he kind of went in there and fucked up their shit a bit. He was supposed to be an opponent, but he ended up beating people he wasn't supposed to beat. So let's get into the fighters. So Fabio Wardley is 13-0, 12 knockouts. He is 27 years of age. He's 6'5" with no registered reach, but I'd say his reach is about 80, maybe 81 inches. And Kingsley Ibe is 7-2 with 1 draw, 6 knockouts. He is 28 years of age. He is 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. Now, Fabio Wardley is a pretty highly touted prospect. However, he has looked a little bit shaky in some of his fights. His last fight was against Daniel Martz. He won that in 2 rounds. To be expected. I mean, Daniel Martz is very much low-level journeyman level, but Wardley was getting caught with a couple of shots in there. There was the fight before that was actually probably his best win in Nick Webb. He stopped Nick Webb in the first round, but he did get caught with some good shots before he landed something big on Nick Webb and put him to sleep. Before that was Eric Molina. We know what Eric Molina is all about. At the time he was 27-6-0. Wardley managed to stop him in 5 rounds, but once again he was getting caught with a couple of shots here and there. But typical Molina, accusing his opponent of hitting behind the head once he got in trouble and looked for a way out. Before that was Richard Latte, who used to be quite an entertaining fighter, but of late, including this, he lays down for his opponents. So that one was a 2nd round TKO. Before that, there isn't really much worth mentioning on Fabio Wardley's record. His first kind of step-up fight was against Denis Lebanowski. And at the time, Lebanowski was 13-3. But he still managed to stop him in 3 rounds. Now, Kingsley Ibe. Bit of an interesting character, this guy. He's born in Nigeria but lives in America these days. 7-2-1. So 6 knockouts, 1 loss by knockout, and 1 draw. Now, prior to the lockdown period, I hadn't heard of this guy, being honest. But he popped up on a fight card fighting Patrick Mailata, Commonwealth Games New Zealand fighter, who was 4-0 at the time. He was chucked in there with Kingsley Ibe, and Kingsley Ibe was supposed to be the opponent. But he gave Patrick Mailata a boxing lesson and won by majority decision. I thought it was a clear decision for Ibeh once I watched the fight, but I think maybe Mailata got a bit of the favorite treatment over the 6-round fight and managed to get a majority decision loss rather than a unanimous decision loss. So Top Rank decided to use Ibeh as an opponent for up-and-coming Guido Vianello, a highly touted prospect. At the time, he was 7-0. He was chucked in there, and it was only a 6-round fight. Vianello was working behind his jab, using his straight punches as he usually do, moving his feet quite well in the first couple of rounds, and then Ibeh started countering, and then started countering heavy and put a big gash over Guido Vianello's eye. Guido did try to pour it on a bit to try and get Ibeh out of there, but this dude just kept fighting back, and he ended up getting a majority draw. I thought that was an Ibeh win, judging by what happened in the last 2 rounds. Guido was getting beat up, man. He was in trouble. Blood pissing down into his eye. He was in real trouble. So Top Rank thought, wow, this guy, he's won one fight he wasn't supposed to win, and then he got a draw against one of our highly touted prospects. So we'll throw him in there with Jared Anderson. It's not really fair, is it? Because Jared Anderson, I think, is the best young prospect on the planet at the moment. And as expected, Jared Anderson knocked Kingsley Ibe out. But it took him 6 rounds to do it out of the 6-round fight. So I think Kingsley Ibe really has a good chance in this fight against Fabio Wardley. Now, Kingsley has had a couple of more tune-up fights since that loss to Jared Anderson. I can't say I've seen them, but one of the guys here was 0-2. His very next fight after Anderson. The next fight after that was Jesus Martinez Torres, and he was 23-15-1. So at least he had a winning record, this guy. And Kingsley managed to fully KO him in the 3rd round out of 10. So this fight between Wardley and Ibeh is a 10-round fight. So it's a decent amount of length. Kingsley switches between southpaw and orthodox confidently. He used that tactic to fully confuse Guido Vianello. So we'll see what happens. Fabio Wardley doesn't have an amateur pedigree. Neither does Kingsley Ibe, but this guy's just burst onto the scene out of the blue over the COVID period and done some stuff that he wasn't supposed to do. So I think this is a very interesting fight. Yes, Wardley has fought guys that we know that are possibly higher level in Eric Molina, Nick Webb, but I think both of those guys are limited to a degree. Of course, I think Kingsley Ibe is also limited. We saw that against Jared Anderson, but Fabio Wardley is no Jared Anderson. Hell to the no, he's not on that level. He'd be at least a couple of levels below that. So this could be a very competitive, interesting fight. I think I'm probably still going to go with Fabio Wardley by a late stoppage, but you can bet your bottom dollar I will be putting a little bit of money on Kingsley Ibe for the knockout, because I think it's highly possible and it'll be a good money maker. The bookies will be paying good odds for Kingsley Ibe to knock out Fabio Wardley. It can happen. So yeah, let us know what you think of these two fights. I think they are both pretty interesting and pretty competitive, and we haven't really had that with the heavyweight division for a little while. So I'm glad we've finally got something competitive and maybe a little bit exciting to watch for the big boys. Let us know your predictions. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification for future content so you don't miss anything. I'm Jono from Big Boys Boxing, and I'm out. So